All right. For those of you that are new here to the Typical Sportsman podcast, one thing that I absolutely love doing is our monthly Cook Wild episodes. In our Cook Wild episodes, I am joined by
me.
I don't want to say world renowned. I'm joined by mediocre chef,
Mediocre at best,
decent husband, and I don't know,
phenomenal lover.
Ooh, I like it. Chef Mike Castaneda, named one of America's top 10 chefs from the Food Network. He comes on once a month and teaches us how to make some incredible dishes with our wild game meat. Now, this month I asked him one of my favorite things in the world. I should have been born as a Mexican. Yeah, that's what I always say. One of my favorite things in the world is chorizo. And so I asked him if he could make some chorizo out of my venison. So that is exactly what he's going to teach us to do today. Going to be a really good thing to do if you like to meal prep. Going to be a really good thing to do. You can throw this in the freezer in the fridge and use this, for the next days or weeks to come, or cook it right away. So Mike Castaneda, Foodie Mike C, is going to teach us how to make chorizo out of our venison or any other wild game that you might have in your freezer. It's a great way to take some meat from the freezer and turn it into something special. This episode is brought to you by our good friends over at Camp Chef, your way for cooking outdoors.
For the true sportsman, it's more than a pastime. It's a way of life. Embrace the lifestyle of hunting, fishing, and the thrill of the wild. Live the life. Be typical.
All right, Foodie Mike C. First off, I have to challenge you with a question.
Okay, let's do it.
I want to see if you can come up with an answer because nobody else can seem to dispute my claim here.
Okay.
Taco Bell is the single greatest Mexican restaurant in the world.
Is false an answer?
Yes, but listen, here's my argument.
Okay, go ahead.
Based off of everything we can measure, based off of any kind of measured stat.
Yep.
They have more locations.
Mm-hmm.
They have more revenue.
Yep.
So based off anything that I can actually truly measure, Taco Bell is the greatest Mexican restaurant in the world.
This is the whole McDonald's fries thing. Just because McDonald's sells more fries than everyone doesn't mean they actually have the best fries. It's all that is. I mean, you can go to literally any Mexican restaurant ever in the history of the world and find better food than Taco Bell.
Now listen.
Yeah.
Here's what I'll say to that. It is my opinion that there are better tasting Mexican restaurants in the world.
Yep.
It is your opinion and most people's opinion that there are better tasting Mexican restaurants in the world. However, taste of food is all just opinion.
Okay. Yep.
So based off, again, every metric I can come up with, Taco Bell's the best Mexican restaurant in the world.
Yeah, I'm going to still stay with false.
The closest thing that I've heard to a good argument.
Okay.
And we're getting way off topic here, but the closest argument that I've heard to this is that we can measure quality of food.
Yeah, that's
we can measure
absolutely
quality of ingredients of food, which I'll give them that. So that is a metric that Taco Bell would lose in. But man, well, first off, I just love Taco Bell.
Yeah,
so,
I'm not even going to say I absolutely don't like Taco Bell because I mean I'll go there, but to me it's I might as well be at McDonald's. You know what I mean?
You're about as Mexican as Taco Bell.
Oh man, wow. Okay.
No, I love making people mad with that. Like I'll bring it up all the time. Like we're sitting at a Mexican restaurant. I'm like, man, this is almost as good as Taco Bell. And people are like, what? And then I bring that topic up. So we're making chorizo. Chorizo is one of my favorite meats. I eat chorizo average 3 times a week. Probably.
Constantly. Yeah.
Because I love making like breakfast bowls with potatoes, chorizo, eggs, and some pepper jack cheese. Like that's one of my favorite meals ever. Make it probably 3 times a week. However, I just use pork or beef chorizo from Walmart. Mm-hmm. So I asked you to teach me how to make chorizo on my own. Here's why. It's a really good way. Guys, listen, we're always looking for ways to incorporate some of that ground venison or mule deer, elk, whatever we've got in the freezer. We're always looking for a way to incorporate that. We use the steaks, we use the roast, but then we usually have like a whole bunch of ground meat and we're like, how do I want to use all this?
Honestly, that's the biggest thing I hear. I hear people like, man, I'm tired of chili. I'm tired of, trying to make like these ground beef jerky sticks or whatever people are doing. And that's kind of just the general consensus. That's all people do with it. You might be able to fake a little taco meat or something, but it's still, not the same. You want something with some great flavor, something you can put together, pretty quickly and easily. And this is the way to do it.
Exactly. Because, man, really, and people can shame me for this if they want. I'm not a big burger guy out of venison. Like I don't like my burgers to be made out of venison.
To me, it doesn't make sense. I mean, not even as someone who, it's not like I eat game all the time, but when you have a burger, you want something that's, generally thick and juicy, a lot of flavor, things like that. But I mean, if you're kind of just messing with venison, unless you really mix it, I mean, you're not getting that. And that's not really what it's for. So this is a nice different approach to it. And obviously there is a way to do venison right as far as a burger goes. But like I said, you're probably going to want to mix it and treat it differently.
Yeah. And so, I mean, that's just my deal. And I've tried, mixing bacon fat or listen, I'm just not a burger fan out of venison. And that's all right. I mainly use it, like you said, chilies, spaghettis. I do quite a bit of a lot of things like that where I'm incorporating it into a bigger part of a recipe, if that makes sense.
Make a sloppy Joe. And I feel like a lot of times when people are doing something with ground venison, typically it's like they are just kind of masking the flavor. It's like that's kind of the whole point is like, what can I do to make this taste good? So, my wife or my mother-in-law or whoever will eat it and not throw up.
Yeah. And that's why I think this chorizo is so cool because again, I can take, 2 pounds of ground beef or ground venison out of the freezer, mix it in a bowl and then restore it back in the freezer. And all of a sudden it's not just venison, it's chorizo and I can use it in a whole new way. So that's what I kind of asked you to do. Usually we're taking meat and we're making a recipe out of it. That's not what I wanted to do for this episode. I wanted to take meat and make something that we can then utilize to make a whole bunch of different things with. So really simple. You just mix some dry ingredients together. First off, walk me through the dry ingredients and I know that I've learned this just watching you cook. Chefs don't really measure anything out.
No, and I did try to for this because, I mean, a lot of it, obviously, the cool thing about this is you can make it any way you want. For example, I used a smoked paprika just to give it a little extra flavor. I mean, there's a bunch of different paprikas that you can use. There's some spicy paprika if you want to add a heat to it. If you want to add something like cayenne to give it some heat, you can. But I also used apple cider vinegar as kind of like a way to just get it all mixed up nice. It's going to add a little acid pop for you. If you want to do something more like a rice wine vinegar, red wine vinegar, there's a lot of different stuff that you can do to kind of add your own spin to it. But a lot of the stuff that you are typically going to use, you probably already have on hand. And that's why I love cool about chorizo. This. Yeah.
So you don't have to run out and buy a bunch of stuff. Everything you named is like, oh, I've got that. Like,
exactly. If you make chili, you have chili powder of some sort, and this goes to the whole Taco Bell aspect. You can use your standard crap from the store, just your $1 little shaker thing, or you can get, like I used a Kashmiri chili. You can use like a New Mexico ground chili powder. You can even use like an ancho chili powder. So, I mean, there's a lot of really cool things that, you can keep it as basic as you want. You can elevate it a little bit.
What kind of chili was that you said you used?
Kashmiri. It's used more in like Indian cooking. But
where's that on the heat scale? Just so like when I eat this, I want to know, like, do I want to make it hotter? Do I want to make it?
No, you won't have a whole lot of heat with it. If you want to do heat, like I said, you can do something like cayenne. You can do like a ground chili de árbol, something like that. Chili de árbol is going to give you a significant amount of heat. So if you are opting for something like that, I would test it a little bit at a time. That's why we use paprika as well, because it's going to give you a little bit of pepper flavor, that nice red color. But it's not like you're using straight chili powder, which would just, absolutely overload the dish.
Now, as you listen to this, which I think you have a few more ingredients to mention, as you listen to this, drop down in the description, and I'm going to put per pound of meat, how much of this he would put for each pound of meat. So again, if you want to make 5 pounds of this at a time, if you want to make a pound of this at a time, we made a pound today. I usually consume, for lunch every day, I usually consume a 1/4 pound of red meat for lunch every day. So I portion this out. I portioned 1 pound out for 4 meals. And so we'll drop in the description below per pound of meat, how many of these ingredients you would use. used a couple ingredients that kind of surprised me, like cinnamon.
Yeah. And that's not something you're going to get at Taco Bell. You know what I mean? If you have a barbacoa or something like that, you're not going to get, even birria. If you're doing it traditionally, you're going to have some sort of spice, maybe a little clove or something to it. Cinnamon is a nice, quick addition that everyone has at home, so that's again, it's not something you're going to add a lot of, but you're going to add a little touch to it. So when you eat it, you're going to be like, man, there's something in here, and it's going to taste more authentic than your, Taco Bell, Walmart chorizo.
Now, as far as, is that all the dry ingredient, like all the seasonings?
Well, so there's standard stuff you're going to put into it, like cumin. I feel like that's, a lot of these spices are things that you're going to have like in a taco seasoning. So if you've ever made your own taco seasoning or have thought about making your own taco seasoning, you're going to use stuff like oregano, cumin, garlic. I added some thyme as well to kind of give it just a little bit of that earthiness, salt, your chili powder, your paprika, things like that. So these are all typical ingredients that you're going to use for, any of your packet taco seasonings that you're, typically thinking of that you would use at home. So those all go in as well to kind of give it those flavors. But I think you're getting the accent really from the things like the chili powder and your little bit of vinegar.
Now, again, all of the amounts in the description of the episode. So wherever you're listening at, whether you're listening to audio or on YouTube or wherever, just check the description for all the amounts of those, screenshot them, and then keep that as a chorizo recipe. Now, I'm interested to know why mix the seasonings with apple cider vinegar?
Like I said, I feel like the apple cider vinegar just gives it that nice acid pop. It's going to make it taste a little different. And it's honestly, as far as venison goes, it's going to kind of just help with the flavor of everything. But just hydrating all that stuff is going to just help express those flavors a little bit more quickly. That's why I said if you could even just give it 30 minutes before you decide to start cooking and let it do it, let it do its thing, it's going to taste that much better. But give it a whole day. You know what I mean? Make it and then have it in the morning the next day, and it's going to be a pretty significant difference.
So don't cook with this right out of the bat, right?
You can, but it's going to be better if you wait. Just like anything, you know what I mean? A little bit of marinating is just going to make all the difference in the world.
Right. Okay. So 24 or 48 hours, how long, what's the time frame in which I need to cook it before I put it back in the freezer?
I would treat it, if you're not freezing it immediately, I'd give it, 3-4 days. But I feel like typically, if you've got chorizo on hand, it typically doesn't last that long anyway.
Yeah. No, it doesn't.
It'll last you 2 days, and then you're going to be like, man, time to make some more chorizo. So with that being said, it's not a bad idea to, quadruple the recipe, get you a nice, 4 or 5 pounds of your meat out, and then do your portion bags so you're not doing it every other day.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, and this is kind of just more for curiosity's sake, would this taste better had we have done it right when I grounded the deer, as opposed to having pulled out, frozen ground venison?
Yeah, I don't know that's really going to matter that much. To me, you're getting a difference in flavor when you're doing something like with beef, and it's more of like a dry age thing. So, or even wet aging, if you're aging beef, you're going to get a different flavor. I don't know that you're necessarily going to get that much of a difference. Obviously, if you're dry aging venison, you're going to really concentrate the flavor. So I don't know that I'd recommend that ever. But yeah, I don't think it's going to be a big difference. I think, frozen, fresh, whatever, just get it done and make it taste good.
Perfect. Guys, let me tell you how, well, first off, give us some ideas how people can incorporate chorizo. Like, obviously, my favorite meal, this is literally one of my favorite meals on planet Earth. Throw some olive oil in a skillet. Get your potatoes cooking. Get them all nice and crispy. Then throw your chorizo in and just let the potatoes continue to cook in that chorizo as the chorizo cooks. Crack a few eggs in there. Throw some cheese in there. It's one pan. Keeps it nice and, you only got to clean one pan at the end of the day.
That's the easy way. Absolutely.
Dump some pepper jack cheese in there.
Oh, yeah.
Scoop it up with tortillas. Or just eat it as a bowl.
It's just heaven.
Great. That's what I call a man meal. I call it a man meal because it's quick, it's easy. There's not a lot of work to do. It's cheap. There's not a lot of cleanup to do. That's why I call it a man meal. So what else could they do with chorizo? Like now they've learned how to stock up a bunch of chorizo in their freezer. What all are ways that they can incorporate chorizo?
Well, one thing that's really good I like to do is even taking like diced up chicken, something like that, throwing in some chorizo with it. So as you're cooking down the chicken, you're getting all those chorizo flavors as well. And it makes a nice, quick, easy taco without doing anything really substantially different, you know? So that's really good. Add it to your chilies. You know what I mean? If you're doing, you know, whether it's some beef, venison, pork, whatever, add a little bit of the chorizo to it as well and give it a whole new flavor. People actually use masa, like the ground flour that we use for tortillas, tamales, things like that. Add a little bit of masa to it as well while it's cooking as a thickener. So you're going to get some of that delicious corn flavor, you know, that you would from like a tortilla as well with your chorizo chili.
Let me just say this. I'm excited because, again, I buy a pound of chorizo from the store about every 3 days, 4 days. Which chorizo's cheap. I'm not saying like...
Yeah, it's not bad.
I'm not saying it's a crazy expensive thing, but I'm so excited because like we talked about before, I've got so much ground venison. I use the steaks up really quick. I use the roasts up really quick. I use all of those other cuts really quick, but ground just seems to kind of stock up year after year. And so I'm incredibly excited to have a way to incorporate the ground meat in a different way. So guys, go out and try the chorizo from Foodie Mike C. This is a monthly special we do. So come back every month and Mike is going to teach you how to make something incredible out of wild game. He challenges me to think about wild game in a new way pretty much every month. But he also reminds me that you don't have to overcomplicate it every time.
Keep it simple. Keep it sexy.
We, next month, we've got some exciting stuff. We've got Justin Spring, Executive Director of Boone and Crockett. He's coming down. We're going to do some crazy, sexy food with some pheasant and quail. My favorite of the wild game. If I could choose any wild game to have unlimited access to the meat, it would be pheasant and quail. So we're going to do some just incredible food with the pheasant and quail next month. So stay tuned for that. Teaser, we might have some Chick-fil-A chicken minis out of pheasant and quail. So going to be incredibly good next month. And then come April, Foodie Mike C is joining us at the Pope and Young Convention in Glendale, Arizona, as one of our celebrity judges for the Cook Wild Challenge for the Pope and Young first annual Wild Game Showdown. So join us in Glendale to try some incredible food. If you've got a recipe you want to show off, make sure and enter. Our friends at Camp Chef are fully sponsoring that. So every team that enters...
Come on with a new grill, right?
Right. You're going home with a new grill just for entering. So the cost of entering, that's $300 for the team. You get a full Camp Chef system just for entering. So join us in Glendale, show off your recipes. Everybody, you get to try them as crowd favorites. So everybody gets to try the recipes. We're just going to have a fun time eating wild game, hanging out, cornhole, music. You know, I'm sure knowing Pope and Young, there's going to be some kegs. So join us in Glendale, Arizona. It's going to be a fun time, a great event, and Foodie Mike C is going to judge your food. Guys, thank you so much for listening. Go out and make you some chorizo with your wild game. You'll be glad you did.
That was easy.